we just didn't miss church. My dad was a song leader or music director, as we call it today. The adult Sunday school class teacher, he was also a deacon. So we just didn't miss church. We were always there, and I remember being told if I wasn't running fever and wasn't throwing up, I was able to go to church. And that's pretty much the way it was. We didn't miss much. It was not unusual for us during revivals for everybody to go to the same house. I'm sure you have experienced that. We don't have that kind of thing. We're all too busy anymore. But I enjoyed that and missed that. My two older sisters and I were all saved at the West May Baptist Church in Sparkman, Arkansas, baptized by that church. When I was 11 years old, I began to feel really uncomfortable especially during the summer revival, about my salvation. I realized I was lost. I knew that. And that no amount of going to church was going to save my soul. It was going to change anything. I struggled with this until the Sunday morning service of a week revival, which started on Sunday and ended on Sunday. And this was the last Sunday service. And I couldn't wait any longer. And I didn't know what to say. And so I finally just said, Lord, I surrender all. You know, it's not important what you say. It's the attitude of the heart. It's what your desire is. And God knows all about us. He knows what we want. So I moved in the invitation. I was very shy, and it took a lot to get me to move down the aisle and go tell our pastor that I had been saved and I wanted to be baptized. I was one of about 10 that day. Wouldn't we love to see a service like that? I was one of about 10 that day that was, most of us were joining by profession of faith. Most were saved that morning. We really had a revival that last day of the revival. There were already 5 or 6 that had joined, had been saved or had joined for other reasons. And so there were about 16 of us, I think, baptized the next Sunday in the Washita River at Sparkman. During my senior year of high school, I began dating a young man who had started attending our church during a revival, the previous revival that summer, Joe Dickey. And our pastor took a very special interest in him. He said, God's got something for that young man. He said, I don't know what it is, but he's going to use him. And several months later, Joseph preached and was ordained by the West May Baptist Church. And after we were married, a couple of years after we married, we moved to Conway, where he could go to Central Baptist College and get the training that he needed. The Lord blessed our home, as you well know, one of them well, with 2 children, Christy and our son Kevin. And Joe pastored a total of 14 churches in his 51 years of ministry. So you can say I have been to church a lot in my life. There were times I told him I felt like we lived in the church, but it was good. It was a good life. In 1976, on a family trip, camping trip, I began to have a lot of pain, which I'd been having some in my left shoulder. And it got so bad that we packed up Saturday morning and early. We were going to stay till Saturday afternoon. Packed up early, came home. And I was just miserable all weekend and went to the doctor first thing on that day. And went to Dr. Lee at Stamps. I'm sure most of you know him. Joe was pastor in Calvary Baptist Church at Stamps when this all happened. And didn't know he was already pretty sure that it was some type of lymphoma in my shoulder, but he couldn't say what kind. And so I went that very next day to Dr. Knight in Texarkana, and he mentioned amputating my arm, which young mother of a little girl not quite 8 and one that was not quite 2, I said, I can't do it without my arm. I can't do that. But I knew that God could give me strength for whatever he had in store. And their diagnosis, this was during Memorial Day weekend, and in 1 week, I had appointments in Houston. There were people in Stamps that were familiar with MD Anderson in Houston, and they got busy and helped me get appointments in Houston, along with Dr. Lee and Dr. Knight as well. And their diagnosis was totally different. It was diffuse histiocytic lymphoma, and I began radiation treatments, had 25, and you mothers can identify with this. I had a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old, or almost 8, and our mothers took care of them. They took turns, and Joe's mother especially, my dad was still living and in poor health, and so Joe's mother came a lot, she and her sister, and took care of our home and our children. I began radiation treatments, had 25 radiation treatments, and they gave me the option of chemotherapy or exploratory surgery, which I chose the surgery because I was scared to death of chemotherapy. 10 years later, I hadn't had it, but I chose the surgery and lived with chemotherapy. At first, I went for a checkup every 2 months, and then it went to 6 months, and for 10 years, everything was okay. But on a youth trip to Little Rock, Arkansas, I was getting on the church van, and I stepped down wrong on that leg that had been hurt. I didn't know what was wrong, but it broke. I mean, just stepped down that far, it broke. And as I made this step getting on the van, and I had 2 stainless steel rods put in that leg, and guess what? Wouldn't think I'm that powerful, but I broke both of them at different times, about 2 years apart. So my nephew, who has a pretty good job, responsible job with the company that sells rods for legs and things like that. He called my doctor in Houston, and he said, we have something brand new. It's a titanium rod. And he said, she can't break that rod. And he was right. I did get this titanium rod in 1986, and it's still my constant companion. I'm praying that I don't break it ever. But since that time, I've had 2 bouts with breast cancer. Why have I told you all these? I hope I haven't bored you too much, but I've told you because I want to emphasize how different my situation would have been without my Savior. Without my Lord Jesus Christ who stood by us, I cannot begin to tell how God blessed us with His blessings were so real every day, something new, and so evident. We can see the Lord working. I can't imagine how different things would have been without Christian friends who helped us along the way. People were wonderful. That's all I can say. It's unreal. They held prayer meetings, prayer vigils. They kept our children. They brought food when we came home on weekends when I was taking the radiation treatments. My husband was pastor at Calvary, and he wanted to keep his church, and so, and plus we want to come home and see our kids. But we came home every weekend for him to preach. We'd leave on Sunday afternoon or early on in the morning, depending on what time my appointment was. And we did this every weekend during my 5 weeks of radiation treatments in the industry. It all goes back to that day that I gave my heart to the Lord as an 11-year-old girl at the Wesleyan Baptist Church in Spartanburg, Arkansas. And whatever illness or other situation might take my earthly life, or if I'm still alive when Jesus comes, and I hope I am, I know I will have a very new body that needs no rods, won't need anything that it doesn't have, and it will be subject to pain, it will be subject to disease, such as cancer, or it will be subject to death. I have claimed 2 verses in my experience. I say, why those 2 verses? The second time, that second time that I had cancer 10 years after the first one, we were in a watch night service at Hillcrest when I had gotten a call that day that it was cancer again, and I had to go back to Houston. And I claimed these 2 verses. They just jumped out at me in that service. And I want to read them. Isaiah 41:10, fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee, yea, I will help thee, yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. And I can't emphasize enough how much God did that. It's been through His word. And Isaiah 43:2, it has just been my special verse. And it says, when thou passest through the waters, I will be with thee. And through the rivers, though they shall not overtake them, they shall not overflow thee. When thou walkest through the fire, which I felt like I was doing, thou shalt not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle among thee. And I truly experienced God's care for me, and especially, I really wasn't worried about me. I was worried about my family. I was worried about my kids, like any mother would be. It's so hard to be away. I want to close with Psalms 46, 1 through 5. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore will we not fear, though the earth be removed, and though mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof, there is a river, that the streams whereof